There is nothing quite as painful as repeatedly getting to the playoffs, then losing time after time after time. The Cowboys haven't reached the NFC Championship since 1995, despite the fact that they've trotted out some of the most talented teams of the past decade. Today, we'll dive into the offensive film of the last 3 playoff losses, where I've found one common thread that runs through each devastating defeat. Starting with 2021, then working our way to the present, the Cowboys faced off with the 49ers and fell 23-17 in Dallas. While it came down to the wire, you could just feel Dak Prescott was playing tight. They were 12-5, won their division, scored the most points in the league, and were one of the best teams overall. Expectations were even higher than usual that this could be the year they break through, but the pressure of everything crushed this team. In this game, you could just tell Dak was pressing. He knew what this win and next win would mean for Dallas, and you could tell he wasn't playing his game. He wasn't taking the easy layups with CeeDee Lamb outside pre-snap with the corner way off. If CeeDee breaks his one tackle, he's running forever, and when a team senses the quarterback is pressing, it permeates throughout the rest of the offense, defense, everybody. There were multiple examples of Dak and the receivers not being on the same page, where plays are drawn up for the receiver to get to one specific landmark, and if he's not there, it's gonna look like a wild miss. And the Cowboys especially struggled to get in sync against zone coverage, where receivers' routes are supposed to change based on where the coverage is. On a critical play in the early fourth quarter, down 23-7, check this 49ers disguise. It looks exactly like cover 1 man with the 1 high safety, the press man coverage, and the 3 defensive backs over the bunch. But at the snap, they drop into cover 2 zone with 2 deep safeties, and Dak and Amari Cooper just aren't on the same page. Both are tight. Ideally, Dak reads this rotation at the snap and hits CeeDee up the sideline. Maybe that's too high of an expectation with this disguise, but the problem is Cooper's route. If Emmanuel Moseley had followed his shallow route in man coverage across the field, Amari would keep running to try and create space away from the man coverage. But since it's zone, he's supposed to settle down into the space underneath and stop his route. But look at the disconnect between 2 veteran, supposedly elite players. If they were perfectly in sync, Dak would have read Dre Greenlaw driving on the shallow and put this back shoulder so Amari could turn the other way upfield and pick up the 4 yards. But Cooper kind of stops, as he should. Dak throws it into the coverage, and the Cowboys are forced to punt. We can see this same exact sequence play out with just 2 minutes left on what should have been the game-winning drive, down 23-17. But once again, CeeDee hesitates, Dak leads him too much, and the miscommunication leads to an incomplete pass. Like everybody else, Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore watched in real time as Dak kind of seized up under all the pressure and scrutiny of this game. So they had to call simpler concepts that didn't require him to think as much, which didn't work. This is an all-curl concept, which just doesn't stress the defense that much. All the routes come open at the exact same time, so Dak can't really go through a progression. He just has to pick a guy, and if nobody is open at the top of his drop, then he's sheet out of luck. The loss was a tough pill to swallow, but it still felt like the Cowboys were building. Parsons, Diggs, and CeeDee were still young. McCarthy was going into his 2nd full season with Dak healthy. Things were still looking up, but despite the fact they were 12-5 again, the Eagles finished better. So Dallas landed in the wild card, where they did smash the Buccaneers 31-14. Dak was spectacular. Don't want to gloss over this at all. So the Cowboys headed to San Francisco, where they suffered a debilitating 19-12 loss. This time, I don't put it as much on Dak or the offense, but more on the dominance of the 49ers and DeMeco Ryans' scheme. One thing Ryans did to scheme him up was study and dissect the previous year's film. Check the Cowboys formation with the 3 receivers at the bottom and how they're running dagger. CeeDee clears out the coverage for the tight end Dalton Schultz to break into the open space, but Ryans has Talanoa Hufanga ready. He almost knows what's coming and flies down to take care of the in-breaking route. Well, when we go back to an example from earlier in the video the year prior, the 49ers are playing quarter, half, with this safety in a deep half and then 2 quarters defenders, and watch what happens. The half safety takes the clear out, the bottom quarters defender takes the go, but Jaquiski Tartt isn't necessarily ready to drive down on the dig. So when we go back to our 2022 example, Hufanga knows each receiver is accounted for, so he now has the freedom to drive down and break up the now good throw. Another thing Ryan did well was scheme against what Dak likes to do best, throw up the seam. He is fantastic at playing within structure and getting through his reads 1, 2, 3. He is a robot for better or worse, so Ryans knew he had to mix up looks to protect the seams and force him out of his comfort zone. This is basically 989, which we talk about damn near every week, curls instead of goes though, where they're running 2 curls outside of the sticks and then a dig post that converts based on where the safeties are. When there's just one high safety, you don't want CD running a post, so he converts to a dig, but the 49ers are ready. They know this is gonna be a dig under the safety, so they drop Dre Greenlaw off right underneath, forcing Dak to play off his typical rhythm, and he throws a late curl, which is intercepted. There were also some examples of him pressing too. They have this spacing concept where they're reading the curl flat defender, but when the 49ers mix up the look a bit and the read technically should go to Dalton Schultz, in reality CD is the one who is open, and he is not happy about it. This is what I'm talking about. Dak can be a robot. And then we have another callback to the 21 game where they're trying to connect on this shallow cross, but it's still wonky. They're not on the same page. Now Dak tries to throw back shoulder like we talked about, and it's just not good. You can just feel something is wrong when watching the Cowboys in the postseason. Like, something is off. And that's what I put my finger on when watching all this film. They are tight. They're pressing. They know the gravity of the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. And when they got absolutely blown out 48-32 a few months ago at home against the 7-seed Packers, it was never more apparent. One thing that jumped out to me early was CD struggling to get open. There were 2 examples where he was isolated outside as the first read, so if Dak is counting on him to be open outside, he's putting a lot of trust in him, because on these quicker concepts there's not really a second option, and CD struggling out of the gate affected the rest of the game and contributed to Dak playing tight. Just a couple of these missed layups put the Cowboys in an early hole, where a first down errant throw turns into a 2nd and 10, which turns into a 3rd and 7, and before you know it, you're down multiple touchdowns. With the score 14-0 in the mid-second quarter on 3rd and 5, the Cowboys have this smash concept against cover 2 zone. Smash is a flat and corner, which is meant to stretch out the curl flat defender. If he bites on CD like he does, the corner route comes open, and I believe that cause CD struggled to separate earlier in the game, Dak didn't want to throw this. Sure, we've talked about how bad it is to throw speed outs when the corner's body position's ready to drive and pick it off, but I think a throw deep outside here gets the job done, and if Dak's not going to throw this, there's also a window to hit Jake Ferguson, doesn't do that either, and instead of hitting Michael Gallup on the backside dig, he leaves the clean pocket, takes a sack, knocks the Cowboys out of field goal range, and by the time they get the ball back, instead of it being 14-3, it is now 20-0. There were more examples of quarterback and receiver not being on the same page. I think this one's on Dak because you want CD running away from the zone defender, but he looks at CD like he's insane, so maybe I'm wrong on that one. And this leads us to the play that broke the game wide open with 2 minutes left in the half, still down 20-0. Dak drops back trying to pick up a quick first down on 2nd and 2, and Darnell Savage intercepts the pass and takes it to the house. This is another example of him being a bit robotic, where the Cowboys are running this triple slant concept, and you're really reading each defender over till you find the open slant. When he sees Savage coming down for the first slant, he immediately progresses to the next, but that's the issue. He is so by the book, so, well, robotic. On paper, he gets to the correct read, but by not reading it out completely, he can't see that Savage is shading towards the second window, and he intercepts the pass. I like robotic quarterbacks, Playing in structure and on time leads to the highest floor for a player, and it breeds consistency. But when watching Dak in this offense in the playoffs, there needs to be more times where he creates a second play. Playoff defenses are so good, there are just fewer times when you're going to have wide open receivers. But Dak is not a creator. Creators are truly this next generation of quarterback. Guys who can move around to let the receivers get open off script. But the Dallas Cowboys do not have one. He's good, don't get me wrong, just not an elevator where he'll push his team over the top. I still like the Cowboys as we move into the 2024 season, but it's hard not to wonder what their ceiling is. The floor has been a consistent 12-win team the last 3 years in a row that can easily roll into the playoffs, but then reality smacks them in the face. This is going to be a huge year for Big D to go deeper into the playoffs. So Dak Prescott will have to play loose, handle the pressure, and create later in the down so that he can smash through that ceiling.